Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm your host, Amanda Lamb. It's hard to believe it's been almost a year since thousands of people witnessed a horrific accident at the Raleigh Christmas Parade, the death of an 11-year-old girl. Hailey Brooks was dancing in the parade on Hillsborough Street when the vehicle pulling the float for the dance school lost control, hitting her. The driver of the truck, Landon Glass, was charged in Hailey's death. But nothing can soothe this family's pain or bring their daughter back. They spoke with WRAL anchor and reporter Debra Morgan. In this episode, she shares their heartbreak and their path forward. Debra, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Amanda.
First of all, this had to be a really, really difficult and emotional interview for you. How did they finally agree to talk, and what was the experience like?
I just watched the entire interview again this morning and went through several more Kleenexes. It's just none of us can imagine the pain that they are feeling. Children, unfortunately, die, but so few die in such a public, tragic way as they lost their little Hailey, 11 years old. And she was dancing. She was, they told me that she was where she was because she had been just talking to the other kids on the float, telling them that they looked cute and to have fun and needed
It was just a happy day.
Yes.
It was a really happy day.
Yes, it was such a big part of their family tradition, as it is with so many people, to go to the Christmas parade. And they talked about how Hailey was so excited that morning to jump up and go dance with her friends. And it was her first time being in the Raleigh parade, but she had been going to the Raleigh parade since she was a baby. And they talked about how Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You is her favorite song. So they sang that song over and over again on the way to the parade.
To the parade.
Yep. And she was just so excited. And, they said, I love you, good luck. And then Dad Trey took Hailey to where the parade float was.
And then they went to the end.
Yes.
Which is on Fayetteville Street, to be there when she finished.
Absolutely.
I know they talked about the painful story of that day. And I think probably the hardest thing as a parent listening to this was the fact that they didn't know right away what had happened. How did they find out?
They didn't know. As a matter of fact, there was a text chain going with other dance moms. So April Brooks is Hailey's mom. She was with Camden, their son, and Molly, their other daughter. And they were, like you said, waiting at the end of the parade for Hailey to come by so they could scoop her up and go on with the rest of their day. And they didn't know what had happened. They just knew that the parade had stopped. The texts started coming in from the other dance moms, and they said that basically Hailey's age group, everyone was okay. So April says to her husband, Trey, go ahead and go pick Hailey up. So he goes about the mile back on the parade route and goes to try to find Hailey. They put him in a police car right away, and he's on his way to Wake Med.
So
They're
they clearly,
escorting him.
Once he identified who he was, they realized that he was the father of the child who'd been hit.
Correct. And then he calls his wife, April, who's still at the end of the parade, and she's still thinking, well, I think it's okay. I think she's okay. But he told her, you're going to be with a police escort going to Wake Med. And so she didn't have any police officers around her, so she ran to the first police officer she could find. And she said, I'm not sure what's going on, but my husband is in a car. They're going to Wake Med. How can I get
me?
Yes.
Yeah.
So she was then being escorted to Wake Med. In the meantime, her mom had been watching the parade live on TV. Her parents had been. So her mom tries to call April, tries to call Trey. And Trey is the one who picked up. And she was just hysterical talking to him, saying, I don't know what's happening, but I just have this horrible feeling that it's Hailey. So the grandmother was there. So April's mom was there, and Trey was there first at the hospital, and they had found out about 30 seconds before April walked in the door, and she said she just ran past security, got into the emergency bay, and that's where they found out.
Wow, that is really emotional. It's hard to imagine anybody going through that.
Yeah.
We're going to talk more about this story after a short break. Welcome back to the WRAL Daily Download. One of the things, Debra, I remember from that day, because I was out there with the WRAL crew, actually just visiting with them. I wasn't working at the time. And I started walking towards where this had happened to try to help get information. And a mother from the dance group came up to me and grabbed both of my shoulders, and she was screaming. And she said, "Where are they? Where are they?" And she thought I was a dance mom. She just, didn't recognize me or thought I was somebody else. And I said, "I'm so sorry. I don't know. I'm a journalist." And then she just kept running. But it was just stuck in my head thinking about those parents a mile away. It's just hard to imagine.
Such a panic.
Yeah. And actually, my daughter danced in that parade since she was 7.
Yeah.
And she was there with me that day. That was the first time she'd ever come to watch the parade. She's a college student. And her first time in the parade was in front of the float holding a sign as a 7, 8-year-old little girl. And so all of those memories came back to me.
Yeah.
How is the family doing now? I mean, it's only been a year. This is just so traumatic. How are they coping?
As we aired the interview on TV, I had several people say, it's been a year, but it's like it happened just yesterday for them. And they replay that day over and over in their minds. It's hard to shut off. They've obviously had counseling. Both their children have had counseling, which is the type of counseling that they give to soldiers who have PTSD. It's such a traumatic event that they went through. But they are trying to move forward, create new traditions as a family. For example, Thanksgiving coming up. And even last Thanksgiving, they didn't have turkey. They didn't have a normal Thanksgiving. They ate steak and crab legs,
because that's what she likes.
Hailey's favorite meal. Yeah. So they're trying to create. Hailey's still very close and in their minds every day, but they're trying to create new traditions too for their children, Molly and Camden. And
I know part of that is talking about her, remembering her. Yeah. What did they tell you about Hailey and her personality?
They describe her as the absolute perfect child. Even as a baby, she didn't cry. She loved to be held. The family would be, in a little struggle, like a little tuggle over taking care of her.
Tell me where she was in the pecking order. Was she the youngest?
She's the oldest.
Oh, she's the oldest.
Yeah,
okay.
She's the oldest. So, there was so much anticipation for her coming into the world. They just talked about how she lit up a room when she walked in, and she would strike up conversations and was never afraid to talk to anyone, and had this really keen sense when other people were down and needed a lift up.
So a lot of empathy for a young child.
A lot of empathy. I mean, her mom described her as she was so smart too. She was in the top 2% of her age for grades, but she had that empathy. Her dad told a story about how there were other little girls that she really didn't even know very well, but she had a cell phone since she was in dance and said, "Here's my number, give me a call." Like she
trying
always
to make connections with people.
Right,
yeah, that's really powerful to know that about an 11-year-old girl.
Right.
So I know the family also, to honor her, they started a foundation, Shine Like Hailey. Yeah. Tell me what the group is doing.
Oh, they are doing, especially for November, it's called 30 Days of Gratitude. And they do things like they encourage people to go out and do a random act of kindness. For example, they showed me pictures of people delivering pizzas to their local fire department. Hailey's brother and sister went out and they were putting dollars at the Dollar General store randomly in different shelves.
Oh, wow. So people could just find $1.
Exactly. And then everything attached to it has a little picture of Hailey or a little bit of Hailey's story. So they're spreading her joy and her light is the way they describe it. So doing these random act of kindness is they also have little gift bags. For example, Hailey's birthday was November 2nd, and they decided to share that with 41 of her friends. They went to a Mercy Me concert in Charlotte and then had gift bags that they gave out to homeless people who were on the street. They had 100 of them. And April, Hailey's mom said, we could have easily given out 100 more.
Wow.
But they talked to people on the streets. They learned about them and spread Hailey's story while passing out some basic necessities.
So really, her legacy is really
it lives on
living on
through them. Mm-hmm.
I know the family is also doing some more practical things. They are pushing for safety guidelines around the parade, asking lawmakers to consider some changes. What are some of those things?
Yeah, so Shine Like Hailey Act is something that is in front of the state lawmakers right now. It is stalled out. I talked to Trey Brooks, Hailey's dad, because he has been front and center. He's been in front of the Raleigh City Council. He's been testifying before state lawmakers. And I asked him, I'm like, how do you – I'm pretty sure that you've probably never been in this position before.
Right. How do you do that?
But but they have found the strength, and they are so passionate about wanting to make sure this doesn't ever happen again to any other children. And so they are forcing themselves in the limelight to try to help make some changes. So some of the changes that they want are more safety inspections, for example, at parades. They did not want the Raleigh Christmas Parade to be canceled this year. They wanted it to go on. They just wanted it to be safer.
Right.
Yeah. So, they said even in their conversations with first responders that day that even they were like, we've really been thinking about all of these different inspections and safety measures that should have been taken even over the years that have never been done.
Right.
Yeah.
And none of us, for example, as parents, would ever have thought of these things unless this had happened.
Right.
So now this is coming to the forefront. So much has happened since the parade. There's a lawsuit pending, I know, against the driver, the dance school, the Greater Raleigh Merchants Association, the float company. Right. Like you said, there was a controversy over whether or not we would have the parade. We are having the parade. It's going to look different on Saturday, November 18th. What's going to be different this year?
They are not going to have any motorized vehicles. That is something that the Raleigh City staff decided. And I think, they had canceled the Veterans Parade too. Because there were a lot of people that couldn't physically walk the Veterans Parade. So they just decided to cancel that parade.
And that caused a lot of controversy.
That did too, because, this is that was a time to honor our veterans.
Sure.
This is a time for family traditions and to celebrate and have fun. And so this year with the Raleigh Christmas Parade, there will be no motorized vehicles. So you see a lot of people walking the parade route.
But at least we're still having it. And I know the family, like you said, they wanted it to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Any final thoughts about the Brooks family and what they want the community to know?
I'm just so thankful that they sat down with me and talked with me. I was so moved by everything that they said and how Hailey was just such a special little girl. They said they aren't sure what they're going to do on Saturday. It will probably involve not putting on any phones, certainly not watching the parade, but they're going to try to start some new family traditions. But they also wanted to really thank the first responders that day. They said they were grieving along with the family.
I'm sure they were.
You know so many first responders
I do.
too.
Yeah.
They compartmentalize to a certain extent, but a lot of those firefighters and police officers have children Hailey's age.
Right. And the trauma, they experience trauma
Absolutely.
as well.
Yeah. So I think that, they want to honor the first responders too. And I think as they told me, they're just taking this day by day.
Understandably. Debra, thank you so much.
Thank you,
for
Amanda.
sharing your experience with this family. And again, WRAL thanks them for sitting down with
I'm
us.
so appreciative.
And sharing their stories, difficult as it
Yeah.
must have been for them to talk about it. And thank you for listening to the WRAL Daily Download. For more news from WRAL, sign up for the WRAL Morning Briefing newsletter. You'll be informed and ready to face the day with one concise email. Sign up at WRAL.com/newsletter. Thanks for listening.